Welcome to Python Advanced 8, Database Interaction. In this video, we'll be looking at database interaction with Python. Every video will have all slideshows and code available in the description. Some quick preamble. As this tutorial is all about interacting with a database, knowing SQL, or at least a basic understanding of SQL and how databases work, is necessary if you want to follow along. If you want to work with databases, I highly recommend learning SQL and how it works. Okay, so what is database interaction? Interaction with a database is the connecting to and querying of a database. This could be inserting new data, creating new tables, deleting data, modifying data, or just viewing data. These databases can be on web servers, the local machine, or even database files. We use the SQL language to talk to databases, and we can use Python to send those commands. This is great for programs that need to store lots of data, scripts that manage or clean up databases, and scripts that back up the database. And there's many more, but for now. Python supports a wide range of databases. Python has written a standard for how a database module should communicate with a database. This means that all the different modules that talk to a certain database all have the same methods. Some of the supported databases are things like MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, SQLite, and many more. Let's quickly have a look at the main methods we use for database interaction. Firstly, the connect method. This is the first method we use when we want to talk to a database. The connect method is usually the only method that will have differences from other modules. Sometimes this method will take an address, a user, and a password. Sometimes it will take an address, a user, password, and database name, and other times it will only just take the database name. Next is the cursor method. This method will return a new cursor object that allows the executing of queries and holds the temporary data. We then have the execute method, which belongs to the cursor object and executes a single SQL statement. Fetch1 method also belongs to the cursor, grabbing the first row of data that is in the current query result. Again, the fetch all method, like the fetch1 method, however, it returns a list of lists of the current query result. The commit method belongs to the connection object, and it saves any changes made to the database in the preceding queries. The rollback method rolls back any temporary changes made in the preceding queries, pretty much the opposite of the commit method. We then have close, which also belongs to the connection object, and it safely closes the connection. Finally, we have the execute many and execute script. These methods execute multiple queries on the database. One is parameter based and the other is a single script. We'll have a look at this in one of the examples. Okay, let's get ourselves set up. We're going to use SQLite as it comes with Linux and it's simple to install and use. SQLite stores all of its contents in a single file. Okay, so I'll come across to Ubuntu. Now, to install SQLite, we do our sudo apt get install, and it's SQLite 3. And that'll find it and it will install it, and I've already got it installed, so it told me that it's already installed. Okay, so once it's installed, we can quickly create a database by running SQLite 3, so SQLite 3, and then the name of the database, so we'll call it test.db, and that'll open up SQLite with a temporary file of test.db. Now we can make it save the file if we run a SQL statement, so let's just check the version. So select SQLite underscore version, and then we put some brackets on the end, and then we end it with a semicolon, and this will return the version of SQLite that we're currently running. Okay, now we can exit out of SQLite by typing .exit, and that will exit it out. And now we can look at our directory, so ls-la, and that will show up the new database that we just created called test.db. Okay, so we're now set up. Let's jump onto some code now. So let's create a basic program that just prints out the version of the SQLite database. And we'll call it database test.py. So I'll come back over to Ubuntu and let's create our Python file. So vim, and we'll call it database test.py. Okay. Now inside our program, we'll define our main function. So we want to import SQLite 3, and we're going to define our main. So def main. Okay, so in our main, we're going to create our connection. So we'll call our connection con, and we'll make that equal to SQLite 3.connect. And then we're going to pass in the name of the database, so test.db is the file name. Okay, now we need to create a cursor object. And this cursor object will execute our statements for us. So we'll call it cur, or you could call it cursor, equals con, so our connection, dot cursor. So that'll get a new cursor object for our current connection. We can then use our cursor to execute statements. So cursor.execute, and we'll pass it an SQL statement. So I'll do select, and we'll do SQLite underscore version, and we'll end our statement. Okay, now we've sent our query off to the database. Our cursor will currently hold the result of that query. So to get the result, we need to create a new variable, so we'll call it data, and that equals the cursor dot fetch 1. So that'll fetch the first row in the results, and we can print that out. So print, and we'll do the SQLite version, and we'll add on the data. So that'll print out the current version. And now we'll close off our connection. So con.close. And that's our main written. So we'll write our if now. So if name is equal to main, then we're going to run main. Yep. Okay. So we'll save this and we'll give it a run. So Python database test.py, and whoop, got an error. Ooh. It's trying to print out something that it can't, so I put string around that. str around the data. Let's right quit that, and we'll try running it again. And there we go. We get SQLite version is 3.7.9. Okay, so that's our first program done. Okay, so let's modify our database test.py to create a table of pets and their prices. We'll use some exception handling to make sure that we don't break our database. Okay, so we'll come back to Ubuntu again, and we're going to modify our database test. Okay, so in our database, we're going to, in our main, we're going to add a try. So we're going to do try, and this will handle all our connections. So inside our try, we're going to have all of our printing out and such happening. And then in our catch, well, our except, we're going to catch any SQLite 3.errors and any other errors as E. Okay. And now inside our except, if there's a connection open, so if con, we're going to con.rollback. So this will roll back any changes that has been made, because if there's an error, we don't want to do half of the changes if it didn't work. And now, finally, so after the except, finally, we're going to if con, so if the connection is still open, we're going to close the connection. Okay, so now let's go on to our try now. Now, we're going to remove our print statement for the version, because we don't need the version anymore. And we can leave all of our cursor and our connects, because they work. And we're just going to add some more execute statements. So first we're going to create a table. So create table. And we'll call the table pets. And that will take an ID, which will be an int. It will take a name, which will be text, and it will take a price, which will be an int. Okay, so that's our create table done. Let's execute some more commands. So cur.execute, and we'll use double quotes this time because we're going to need to use single quotes. And we'll insert into pets, into the table pets, the values 1, and we're going to put in cat, and we'll make it 400. Whoop, 400. Okay. Now let's add in a few more things. So cur.execute, and we'll insert into pets the values, and we'll put in 2, and we'll put in a dog, and the dog can be 600. Okay, so we could add more, but what we'll do is we'll just add only 2 this time, and we'll use the con.commit. So we want to commit all the changes that we've made. Now we can use our cursor again, so cur.execute, and we'll just check that everything's been added in correctly, and we select star from pets, which means it'll select everything it can from pets. And then instead of just using fetch one, what we'll do is we'll use fetch all. So we'll grab all of the data that was found in the query, and we'll use a for loop, so for row in data, we're going to print the row. Okay, so this is our exception handling. So if there's any errors while creating the table or inserting data into pets, it will roll back any of the changes. And we could also add a print statement here. So we could do, after it's rolled back, we could print out going, there was a problem with the SQL. Okay, now if we save this, we can run it. So Python database test, and as you can see, it's created a table and it's added in 2 items, cat and dog, for 400 and 600, and it's been able to select that and print it out. Okay, cool, so that works. So let's go back to the slides. Now let's look at making multiple queries. The Python database standard allows us to make multiple queries using the methods execute script, which takes a string of queries separated with a semicolon, which if you've worked with SQL before will be quite familiar. We are also provided with the execute many method, which takes a tuple of tuples to allow us to use as data in a string template. Okay, so let's modify our code again. This time we'll insert all of the data using one query. We'll also add some extra data in using the execute many method. Just so we can see how it's used. Okay, so I'll come back over to Ubuntu and we'll modify our program again. And this time we're going to change our execute statement, and we'll make it execute script. So this will execute a script, and what we'll do is we'll use triple quotes to make our string continue until it hits another triple quote, and we'll put that ending after the dog is entered. So do triple quotes there, and we're going to need to remove our execute statements, so we can remove these and we'll just tab it back in, and we need to remove all of our end brackets and put semicolons instead. And once we've removed all of our function names, we should get something that looks similar to this, where we have all of our data being added in just the one script, and it creates the table as well. We'll also add a statement at the start, so we'll knock our create table down, and we'll add a statement at the start here that's drop table if exists pets. So because we've already created the table, we don't want to have an error where it tries to create the table again when it already exists, so we'll drop the table if it exists. Now let's add some more data in, but this time we'll use a tuple of tuples. So we'll create a tuple called pets, and we'll make that equal to a tuple, and we'll make the data 3 and a rabbit, and we'll make the rabbit 200, and we'll do 4, and we'll make that a bird, and we'll make the bird 60, and we'll add one more in, and we'll make it a 5, and we'll make it a goat, and we'll make the goat 500. Okay, and we'll close off that tuple. Now we've got a tuple of data, we can use the cur.executeMany method, which takes a template SQL, so we can use insert into pets values, and then inside our values brackets we can do question mark for the first placeholder, comma, question mark for the second placeholder, and question mark again for the third placeholder, and we can close that template off. Then as a second parameter we can pass in pets, and this will execute many statements using all of the values in pets. And now we can commit, and we'll select all, and we'll fetch all, and then we'll print the data back out. So let's save this, and we'll have a look at adding how it adds more things into our database. And we'll try running it again, and this time we get all of our data has been added, and we get cat, dog, rabbit, bird, and goat, and they've all been added to the one table. So that's a useful tool, using the execute many and storing all of your data in a tuple. Okay, so I'll come back to the slides here. Some notes to keep in mind is that most databases have their own module. However, this code should work on all of them. Only the connect method might change. When executing statements, avoid using the % operator for inserting variables into your strings, as it can be abused. Rather, just put the string into a single tuple and use the optional parameter for the parameterized queries. I hope you now have an understanding of how to talk to databases using Python. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Next, we're going to cover C extensions. Thanks for watching.